You must remember that back in 2009, it is ZANU-PF through Minister of Finance then, Comrade Patrick Chinamasa, on the 13th of February, if I'm not mistaken, that introduced the multi-currency regime at that time to deal with what was, to all intents and purposes, a hyperinflationary environment. The current clamor for a return to the US dollar is not sustainable. It is not a correct intervention for a country that is developing, and that is one of the lessons that was learned in the period between 2009 and 2013. That whilst deferring to the US dollar is good and important as a stabilization mechanism, it does not necessarily unleash growth. It does not unlock the growth potential of the economy. So any developing country across the world, all over the world, must of necessity have its own currency as a development tool. Because when you have your currency, you have control over exchange rate, which is very important for development. You have control over broad money supply, which is very important, again, for development, especially in terms of making sure that you are then able to find the creativity for infrastructure development, strategic infrastructure development. That is very important. It is very important that we have our own currency. So it must also be recalled that as a country, we are under ZDERA sanctions, which are financial sanctions imposed by the United States of America. And therefore, for us to defer back to the US dollar, which, as we have seen in unprecedented fashion against Russia, the US dollar can be weaponized against certain individual countries, will not be strategic for us to do that. The correct course of action to take is to adopt, for purposes of building our strategic reserve, will be to adopt a multi-currency system. One would want to look at the yuan, one would want to look at the euro, one would want to look at the rand in this case because South Africa is our biggest trading partner. But most importantly, we must build a bullion because we are a serious gold producing country of note globally, and we must make sure that we build our bullion by increasing the numbers. We're asking for 30 tons per year of gold. We should in fact be asking for a ton, for 5 to 10 tons per month. If we could invest in that direction, it will assist us in terms of strengthening our currency against attacks and aggression by those that have imposed sanctions on the country. So I think that as far as the issue of currency is concerned, it is important. Let's have our own currency, but let's make sure that this currency is defended against aggression, against attacks, which then leads unnecessarily to hyperinflationary situations like we're beginning to now experience. It is crucial that government has now taken steps to intervene in this area to try to arrest the runaway inflation that we're currently beginning to experience. We want to see how these measures that have been put in place by government are going to assist in terms of stabilizing the currency and therefore stabilizing the economy, because most of the fundamentals within the economy are actually the way they are supposed to be.
I know you speak not on behalf of government, but as an independent analyst. Now, we want to find out, some people have been accusing government that what is happening, especially when we look at the auction system, that it is being flouted and it is one of the drivers of inflation. How do you think as a country we can arrest the runaway inflation as you indicated?
Yes, so one of the things that we should do as a country is to strengthen our exports regime. We must earn our foreign currency through a strong, sustained exports-oriented economy. We must build a strong exports-based economy. That's very important. Look at the Chinese economy, for example. Very robust export orientation That's what we need as a developing country. I think the Zimbabwean businessman generally is kind of coy when it comes to breaking the barriers for other new markets in other countries. Going into Zambia with the products that we make, going into Mozambique, into Malawi, into Congo, into Rwanda, everywhere. This is very important because that is what brings a hard currency into our coffers. If we are not doing that, we'll continue to have this problem. Secondly, let's build a bullion. We have no reason not to build a bullion. Let's build a very strong bullion to undergird and to put defenses to our currency. This is very important. Of course, we must arrest a broad money supply. That is very important. If we do not do that, again, it creates some kind of a hyperinflationary environment. This is key. But we must also seriously deal with the question of saboteurs. Those kind of people who deliberately target the currency, the domestic currency, for erosion, for attack, for aggression. We must make sure that we deal with that and nip that challenge in the bud once and for all.
And you speak about increasing exports with the backdrop of sanctions. How are we as a country going to be able to do that?
Right. Remember, the sanctions we have are imposed by the United States of America as well as the UK. We have no sanctions imposed by the African Union. So we need a South-South cooperation model. Most of our trade should now be directed towards the global South markets. You're within the immediate environments of Southern Africa, within the broader environs of Africa itself, but also looking at countries within the East Asia realm, as well as the Pacific, as well as countries within the Latin America sphere, your Brazil, your Argentina, and the rest of it. We must have this kind of an entrepreneur who is courageous, who is bold, who is able to go into these markets without fear, who is able to sacrifice, go into these markets, break new barriers, and make sure that we have foreign currency or hard currency coming into the country. This is very, very important.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, there are people who have been talking about fiscal reforms. Do you have any comment with regards to that?
Ntule Ncube has done very well on the fiscal front. Our books are balancing. There's no problem as far as the fiscal area is concerned. Our budget is okay. So I think the fiscal area is okay. The collections by the tax authority are okay. We see month on month that they're able to surpass the targets that are set by the fiscal authority, and so that the fiscal area is actually doing very well. Ntuli Ncube has been creative in the area of fiscal management, so I think that is okay. But we need to make sure that we assist the market fermentation process through an agro-industrialization process. Industry should not just be in town. People should not be going to look for jobs in urban areas. We must make sure that the land reform process begins to create a new black middle class, a new industrialist who comes out of the farms. Because that's where production is happening. So we need to deliberately direct resources towards agro-industrialization and increase the capacity for market fermentation in order to make sure that we hack the development process. We do not have to follow a Western model of development where we take 300 years to achieve a first world type of an economy. It has been demonstrated by the Chinese. It has been demonstrated by the Russians. It has been demonstrated by most East Asian countries that we could achieve a level of high mass consumption within a very short period of time of between 20 to 30, at most 50 years. Dubai has become what it has become in 50 years. So we can hack the development process and avoid long, arduous processes that lock us into unwinding development processes that do not come to an end by following a template that is now established, which is an East Asian model template of development.